people will be able to come in.
And Christina joining us. Hello, Christina.
Hello, Dr. Hummer. Hey, Jeff, Andy, Adam.
Hey, Christina.
All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started.
Good.
All right, there we go. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our 6th Conversation in Transportation. I was thinking earlier today, it's kind of hard to believe that we started all the way back in February, 10.5 months ago almost, with Ward and I, Dr. Hummer. It doesn't seem like it's been that long since we had that one, but here we are. Anyway, just a couple of the usual announcements. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Hummer here in a minute, but if you're wondering about PDH forms, I know that we're getting towards renewal for everybody's PE licenses, at least in North Carolina. We will be sending out the PDH form link for you to both fill out your evaluation and get your documentation for your PDH. That'll go out this afternoon. If you have any problems receiving that, or you have any questions, please let me know. My email address will be in the announcement as well. Other than that, the only thing that we remind you as we go along the presentation today, we go throughout the conversation. If you have a question that comes to mind, please feel free to put it in the chat or put it in the Q&A box. That way I see it and Dr. Hummer and Jeff see it, and we can get it answered. We'll probably start answering questions right around 12:45, 12:50. So again, if you haven't been to one of these before, welcome. We hope you'll enjoy, and for those of you who have attended our sessions in the past, thank you for coming back. We really appreciate it. And on that note, I'm going to hand it on over to Dr. Hummer to introduce our guest.
Great. Andy, thank you so much. And let me add my welcome to all of our participants out there. Really appreciate it. It's hard to believe it's been a full year. The year went quickly. In some ways, that's a good thing, right? But it did go fast. Thanks to the Strategic Initiatives Council and the Young Members Council for sponsoring this conversation. SISC Chair Adam Fisher, Young Member Chair Christina Whitfield. We really appreciate that you did this and your contribution all year. The purpose of the series is to educate our members through conversations with transportation industry leaders, interesting people with career and topics and ideas, and we're hoping to appeal to professionals of all ages and job titles. So hope that works for you. Thanks to the Nixite Diamond and Gold sponsor companies who made this series possible. You saw some of their logos on the title slide there. Really appreciate their sponsorship and for all that Nixite is able to do because of their help. Great. We are pleased today to talk about freight transportation with Jeff Wafford of UPS. Jeff is the Director of Public Affairs, responsible for state and local government and community relations in basically the Southeast US, 5 or 6 states. And in addition, Jeff covers domestic aviation policy for UPS Airlines. He was also the primary media spokesperson for UPS Airlines for a number of years. Jeff began his career with UPS as a third shift part-time package handler at the participating in the Metropolitan College program to earn tuition at the University of Louisville. And by the way, if you've never been to Louisville and seen the UPS operation there, it's a pretty awesome thing. It's huge and amazing to me. During his UPS career, Jeff has held a variety of assignments in operations and training and business development, customer relations, employee communications, and others. In step with UPS's commitment to the community, Jeff volunteers with local sports, youth sports, and serves on multiple leadership boards in his community. So we appreciate that. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Hummer. Thanks for having me. And I have to say, to start things off, we only have 16 more delivery days left until the big day. So make sure if you're ordering something, get it ordered and get it delivered. We're getting close.
Not much happening in freight transportation these days, is there?
Yeah, we've been a little busy, and this time of year is always fun, and it certainly does keep us busy. But we like it. It's really, we there was a video we once produced that said, this time of year is our Super Bowl, and that's certainly the case for us. So we look forward to it.
What's the latest in at UPS or freight transportation in general? In the news, we read about these big backlogs and ships, parked halfway across the Pacific Ocean. How are you seeing things?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly been impacted by that. I mean, we can see there's a supply chain backup, and it certainly has slowed things down over the past few months. We're starting to see that ease in some areas, and there's a lot of different causes to it, but whatever the causes may be, we're starting to see it ease somewhat. So our focus has been on just trying to do our best to get once the volume gets into our network, to be dynamic, be flexible, and as soon as we get it, to be ready for it so that we're not a part of that backup.
I guess my mental image here would be that you all are more victims of this than probably anybody else. You're going to get blamed by the customers for something that's not your fault.
Well, I mean, we're not placed. We don't want to place blame on anybody for sure. And we get our volume, our packages. We use a variety of sources too, and certainly ocean freight is a part of it as well. So I think the big key for us is, no matter what method it is, keeping that open line of communication with our shippers, so that we can be ready for it. Quite a bit of our international volume, while we do use ocean freight, comes via the air. Obviously, so we get a lot of it via aircraft. 747-8 aircraft can hold, it weighs about 1 million pounds on takeoff. So it's a pretty big plane. So we can fit a lot of package volume on that. And that has really operated well thus far and has helped with the ocean freight backup, because those aircraft, the weather around the world has been, fairly quiet, knock on wood, for this year. I was, UPS Airlines, we have 5 of our own meteorologists that we have on staff, and they monitor weather all over the world. And actually was visiting with them last week and talking about just weather in general. And they were commenting about, not only in the United States, how it's been fairly calm, but it's also been a very slow typhoon season as well, which really helps us on the international side to get volume in from Asia and get those warehouses and distribution centers stocked up as much as possible.
I'm remembering the movie Castaway. That was a FedEx plane that ran into the typhoon in that movie. So you're all trying not to repeat that performance with your company.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
It seems, again, just from the media reports, that the ports look like they are the sort of choke point generally right now for moving freight worldwide. Is that you agree with that sort of?
Well, I don't know if they're the choke point, but certainly there are a lot of different sources. I mean, whether you talk about the ports being backed up, or whether you talk about staffing issues with distributors and manufacturers. I think all of that kind of has led into this supply chain backup. And there are other reasons probably too that people much smarter than I am could go into and explain. Again, I think for us, we want to make sure that once we get it, whether that's in our hands, trucks, e-bikes, package cars, planes, once we get it, we just want to be as flexible and move as quickly as we can.
You do your thing to it. Yep. Good. Do you think that for us consumers, we're going to see out the other end of this thing that shipping rates are just generally going to rise and add to the cost that we're paying for whatever we're ordering?
I certainly hope that that's not a long-term effect of it. I mean, UPS, we did announce rate increases in early November that'll take effect in 2022. But if you look historically, those increases, typically happen that time of year, and we typically see those every year. And the ones we introduced this year were in line with the same costs as previous years. And it's really not necessarily tied to supply chain, but more it's ongoing expansion and capability enhancements, because as we've seen over the past not only 2 years, but looking out 5 to 8 years with the explosion of e-commerce and the need for rapid delivery and the desire to have things shipped more quickly than ever, and not only to businesses but also more to homes, we've got to be able to maintain those high service levels that everyone expects. And I remember when I first started with UPS Airlines 20 years ago, getting a package next day air was for the privilege, right? It was if you get something overnight, it's an expensive product, and you are that was a luxury. And now 1 day delivery, 2 day delivery, it's an expectation. So we certainly have to increase costs so they reflect the value of service. And I think that you see that across all methods of transportation, as people want things faster and they need it to be on time more than ever, then those costs to deliver that are going to rise.
Right. So yeah, I think you're right. It's a matter of kind of adjusting our expectations as consumers as well as those in the industry. You mentioned the labor shortage, and I always kind of keep that in quotes. There's certainly a lot of people who are not employed at the moment sitting this one out, apparently. So the labor shortage is, it's a weird thing, but UPS has had trouble finding workers lately, right?
We are, yes. I mean, it's challenging environment. I don't think that's any surprise to anyone. And, the interesting thing that we've seen across this, and we see it in North Carolina, but we also see it in, New Hampshire and Boston. And then we see it in Sarasota, and we see it in LA as well. It's really, no matter the demographic or the political makeup or the environment of the state and the locality, we've seen it everywhere. And it's not only us, but it's also our customers. And a lot of times when you hear me talk about our customers, of course I mean you, because we're delivering directly to you, but for us it's also those large shippers and the small and medium sized businesses that feed product into our network, and we've all definitely felt the crunch of the hiring struggle.
Yeah. Do you think that indicates that this is a really kind of long-term problem we're going to see for years and maybe decades to come?
I certainly hope not. I think that as more people come back into the workforce, and as more people, return to work and yeah, man, it's just a trickle down problem. You think about the daycares and things that have been closed. So as that stuff starts to open and people feel more comfortable going back to school and going back to work, we feel like that'll improve. And I think that businesses have had to do some things that to react to it that maybe that we could have done years ago. UPS has, I think, done a good job of some market rate adjustments in particular areas to compensate employees better than we used to. I know, for example, our personal vehicle drivers in Raleigh right now, who are in Greensboro and areas like that, who get in their own vehicles and deliver packages, they're making between $18 and $22 an hour, and wasn't always that high. And it's the same for our warehouse workers. So we've had to react and make those adjustments, and it's helped somewhat. For the most part, our staffing looks pretty good going into peak season for these final, 16 days or so. There's certain areas and certain hot spots where we still need some help. So if you need a seasonal job in Raleigh or know somebody who does, let us know. We can certainly help there. But I hope that as we get into the new year and we start to see the role that the pandemic plays in our lives, hopefully lessen. I think that the hiring situation will improve.
Yeah, good. Hope so too. Does UPS advocate for more immigrants or guest workers to help in the U.S. anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. We hire from all walks of life, and I think one of the things that the stories that I've seen with a lot of our immigrant workers and our guest workers is, particularly with the immigrant workers, is we hire them on, and we get a really motivated employee, and a lot of times we've seen that they become some of our best recruiters. They recruit family members and friends and say, hey, this is a friendly place to be employed. Most of our jobs are fairly quick to, you can come in and be fairly quick to adapt and be ready to go. And they go out and they recruit for us and bring people in. So we appreciate that.
Good. Have you noticed or saw the need for your training priorities to change with new workers that you're hiring these days? Are the people coming in lacking skills that maybe they tended to have a few years ago? So
there are some skills that we want people to have to come in. The great thing about most of our job openings, whether you're, especially in our automated facilities, you visited Worldport, so you've seen our operation there. And the great thing is I can take anybody on this call and have them ready to sort and work there in about 22 minutes. That's our average, induction training time for an employee. Now, obviously, there are other safety trainings and hazardous material trainings, things we have to go through, but for the most part, it just takes a few minutes. And that's inside the hub. And then when you talk about, like I said, your personal vehicle drivers, it doesn't take a long time to train them, and the technology that we use helps us with that. You've probably signed off for a package and used a dyad, is what we call it. It's an information acquisition device, and you've signed off on that. Well, now that's one of these, right? I mean, that's so we can hand that over and access to an app, and we can have somebody delivering for us quickly after we do background checks, things like that. But in terms of essential skills, what we really need and what we try to look for, and this can be challenging to a certain extent, is just that work ethic and integrity and being willing to show up every single day on time. You can't get a certification for that, although we wish you could. But so we do it. One of the things that we've started to do better, and I think the entire industry could do a better job at this, and including UPS, is go into our high schools and colleges and technical colleges and maintain those relationships and work with them on what skills they need to teach. And, we try to do that. And certainly for the technical jobs, we work with those educational institutions, but then on those soft skills that are needed, like the communications and the work ethic, things like that, we certainly try to explain to our educational institutions how important that is. And everybody loves their brown package car driver and the person who comes and delivers, and think about how that person would be, and would you have that same relationship if they didn't have those people skills, right? You love them because they're on time, they're professional. So we need to have more of that coming out of our schools, and I think our educators understand that and are working hard to make it happen.
I think you're resonating with a couple of our participants out here who are big on the soft skills, and that's an aspect that we all need to pay attention to. So good going. Can you talk just a minute? When I visited Louisville Worldport many years ago, and even then it was striking how automated the process was. At least it looked to me as a outsider, not a freight transportation professional. How automated, how many robots these days inside the terminals?
I've Worldport opened 20 years ago, and I was in there yesterday. I'm not lying. I was in there yesterday loading packages. It's part of, this is the time of the year that we do it. And all management are all hands on deck at this point. And it's incredible to me still, after all these years, when I go in there and to see the automation. So we have in our facilities, typically you have between 50 and 150 miles of conveyor belts. And a package comes in, gets sorted, and goes out. Typically, the only time a person touches that parcel is when they put it into the conveyor system, and then when they take it out and put it back onto a package car or a plane or a truck. So the technology that's encoded in that label that we all take for granted, that we see every day, allows the automation to do its work and handle the sortation for us. And you hear a lot that, well, automation takes jobs away and things like that. And it's been quite the opposite for us, because even before the hiring crunch, the automation allowed us to increase our capacity and take on more packages and more customers. And actually what the automation ended up doing was creating jobs that were higher wage, when you talk about your engineers and your mechanics and things like that. So it's been incredible to see the automated sorting systems. And if you can go on YouTube and type in, UPS automated sorting hub or Wafford or things like that, and see some of it in action. And it's really, it's fascinating to watch. And I'm excited to see what happens next, because we start talking about, right now it takes an employee to unload a truck. Well, what could that look like if a robot were doing it? And we have some of that technology that we're testing. What could it look like if some of your last mile deliveries were done via drone or via a robot or via a little electronic automated cart that takes them to your doorstep? So it'll be exciting over the next few years to see what happens next. My mind's always blown when I go and talk to our automated technology group. We have a specific group of folks at UPS, and that's all they do. They focus on the automated technology, robotics, VR, virtual reality, what they can do next with the technology coming. And they always, every time I go talk to them, I get motivated as to what the future looks like.
I can understand a lot of that. The last 50 feet, getting from the back door of the package car to the front porch of the consumer is the part I can't imagine how that's ever going to be automated. Ever is a heavy word there, but within my lifetime anyway. That I could see all the rest of it until that last 50 feet.
That's one of the difficult parts. And then you have to, how does that interaction look with the customer? Because again, I think sometimes the customer enjoys that interaction, and obviously certain packages have to be signed for and things like that. But I can tell you that a great example of the technology that could take care of that last 50 feet is some of the work that we're doing down in Florida in the Villages. It's a very large retirement community down there. And we're using drones to help deliver for that last 50 feet. What if, now again, there's a lot that goes into this from a security standpoint and from an acceptance standpoint, but what if that drone could, gently lower your product right to a spot in your front yard? Can't work in every case, right? So things have to be tweaked, but certainly that when you talk to our folks, I think that last 50 feet of delivery, 100 feet, last mile is kind of how we always refer to it. That's certainly going to be the most difficult to automate.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about COVID. I kind of mentioned it a couple times here, but NCDOT had a pandemic readiness plan. In fact, I had a small little part in helping to write it back a few years ago. And then when the pandemic hit, our plan was useless. throw it in the garbage. It did not at all anticipate how the pandemic actually rolled out. So did you guys have the same? Were you sort of ready when this thing hit?
Well, you can't be ready for something like this. It was nothing that we could expect, nothing we had seen before. And to your point, you can have those readiness plans and practice them ad nauseum, but and then sometimes when the disaster hits or the situation occurs, everything kind of goes to mush, right? So you have to really rely on your experience and try to adapt as quickly as we can. One of the things that I think benefited us at UPS is that we've delivered, under pressure before. I mean, there are times when our network spikes up and we have to deliver millions of packages at a time, whether that's a new product release from a technology company or whether it's the holiday season, and not just Christmas, but it happens every year at Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. No love for the Father's Day out there, but we have to adapt and flex our network every year, 3 or 4 times a year. So that helped, but there's a big difference in delivering, roses and Christmas gifts as opposed to life-saving, ventilators and test kits and the vaccine, of course, and not only the vaccine, but the millions of pounds of dry ice that has to go along with it if they aren't used. And we didn't have the dry ice capability to make it and manufacture it and get it. So, what we did was we kind of relied on some experience that we've had. We've shipped and delivered the flu vaccine for years. And so part of that included temperature controlled tracking devices. So we knew what temperature the vaccine was the entire way through our system. So we were able to look back and say, okay, we've done this for the flu vaccine. Now here we go with COVID and this vaccine. How can we tweak it? Little difference because the temperature had to be a little colder for some of the COVID product. So we introduced we call it UPS Premier, and it was just a way for us to kind of separate this volume from our other package volume. And we attach devices to the packages so that we can ping them within just a few feet and find out where they are, at what temperature they're at. And that's, we had to adapt that pretty quickly. And sometimes as a company with 500,000 people that's been around as long as we have, you get the reputation both internally and externally as slow to adapt, and you're a big moving machine, right? I was real impressed, and it was actually fairly motivating as a longtime UPSer to see just how quickly we were able to get that up and running. And we've delivered it to date more than 900 million vaccine shipments around the world, and we're about as close to 100% accuracy on those shipments as you can get. And it's been incredible and to watch, and definitely nothing that I would have ever thought 21 years ago when I walked into the front door at UPS for the first time that this would be something that we'd be doing.
Essential to civilization that the supply chain kept working. It's one of the core elements there. But as you look back now, were there some dicey moments? There's some times y'all were kind of scratching your head and thinking we're close.
Well, first, the first dicey moment was when you start to hear, if you remember back in March and April of 2020, you started to get these lists of essential people, right? And obviously healthcare for sure in a pandemic, and police and fire. And I can remember, kind of all of us looking at each other going, well, you have to include us because we're going to be how it gets there. And so that was a little dicey because I don't think people, and it sounds ridiculous now that we look back on it, but people before 2020, I don't think that people looked at the transportation and logistics industry as essential the way that they do now. And so it's a shame that it took a pandemic to do it, but I think it really elevated our entire industry and what we do. And so there were some dicey moments at the beginning. And then you also have to remember too, and it seems like ages ago now, but we were hit with the COVID pandemic. And then just 2 to 3 months in, we were dealing with social unrest all over the country. So as soon as we had gotten clearance to be an essential service provider delivering all of these products, then we started to face curfews in areas where, Greensboro is a great example. We run our hub in Greensboro, North Carolina, operates from midnight until 5 a.m. And, we were being told to stay off the streets because there were social unrest and things like that. So we had to work really closely with the state and cities to make sure that our workers could still get into the hubs and be out at night and get to and from work and sort those packages. And we're real grateful because North Carolina was fantastic to work with, from the governor's office all the way down to our mayors and our representatives that are on the ground there. And they were fantastic to work with and helped us keep things moving. But there certainly were some very dicey moments in the first few months.
We can maybe chuckle about it now, but it was, again, maybe looking back, just one of those essential things that kind of kept the whole operation going. Talk a little bit about the company. UPS is one of the largest companies with a female CEO. So I guess, good for that. And what has that changed anything at the company in any way that you could see?
Well, I think first of all, it's good to see us practice what we preach, right? I mean, we're a company that certainly we talk about our diversity and we talk about inclusion. So it is good to see, it was refreshing to see Carol be named. And we had seen her work for years because she had sat on our board of directors while she was at Home Depot and did a fantastic job there. So coming over, we were all really impressed by her resume when that got sent out. And I think, when she came on board during her introductory event with employees, she did an online kind of a town hall, and the first thing that she said was, "We're going to kick and have fun," right? And I mean, that's just something as a conservative company, fairly conservative company. I mean, our colors are brown, right? So, and we've been around for 114 years. To see a CEO with that energy come in and say, "That's what we're going to do," I think it really motivated a lot of us. And the other thing that she implemented was this thought of being, better, not bigger. And one of the first things she did immediately was look at all of the reports that rolled up to her, and there were hundreds of them. And she said, I can't remember the exact number, but it was like, get it down to under 10, and if it's not a report that has to be done, why are we doing it? We have to ask ourselves why and concentrate on being better, not bigger. And I think for all of us on the call, right, that's one thing we can all agree on, is that the reporting, we do way too much of it. And that was very refreshing to see. So we've seen a lot of that streamlined, and really she's come in and been laser focused on, if it's not important to the customer and to the bottom line, then we need to ask ourselves why we're doing
it. Good. Walmart, Amazon has really, I don't know, recently, but they've really picked it up, I think, delivering their own packages to consumers' doorsteps. Is that a trend, do you think? Walmart and Target going to start doing that too, and other big retailers kind of take over the whole delivery process?
We've seen Amazon do it. Walmart does it now. Target delivers some of their own. I'm sure that they will continue to do more of it, and I'm sure there will be other disruptors out there as well. Not only are there the big box stores and retailers, but also some of the smaller, couriers locally that have started doing it. So we certainly, as the amount of e-commerce continues to grow, and we expect it to continue. I don't know at what pace or trajectory, but I think that the trend is definitely going to continue to go up. I'm sure there will be other additional competition out there that'll push us and make us ask questions on how we can serve our customers better.
Good. And I want to remind our participants on the call here today, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A area, and Andy and I'll sort those and get them to Jeff a little bit later in this hour. Appreciate that. Did UPS support the federal infrastructure bill that passed a few weeks ago? And if so, what parts did you like the best?
Well, I think so. Yes, we were definitely a part of the conversation, and that's a part of I do. I do government affairs and work in the public affairs arena at the state and local level, but we do have a team that does it at the federal level and that stays engaged, not only on behalf of our company, but also on behalf of our industry, whether that be through the chamber or the trucking association and Department of Transportation at the things like that. So we definitely stay engaged in those. And you know, I think for us, the investment, any investment that we can make in the surface transportation network, it helps our industry, but it also makes sure that the U.S. is competitive in the global market. So it increases there, and I think that'll help us as we recover from the pandemic for the not only the near term but the long term. So some of the things that we, obviously new and increased funding for roads and highways and bridges, makes them safer, protects everyone that uses them, and that's not only our drivers but all those who share the road with us. So we certainly were a part of that conversation, and we're happy to see it finally passed.
Do y'all have a interest in the rail sphere as well? I've heard talk anyway that with emphasis on passenger rail and Amtrak that actually could slow down some freight rail operations and make things a little bit more difficult for people shipping that way. So any thoughts on the rail side of things?
Yeah, I don't really get too much involved in that sector. I mean, UPS does use rail. We're a fairly large user of rail across, but I can't really. We'll just have to see how that plays out. I don't have a lot of thoughts on that at this point.
Yeah, some of that could be kind of posturing at this point too. We will see how it plays out. How about on the state and local side? Are you seeing things like across the border in South Carolina where they've got a proposal out there to suspend the gas tax while gas prices are high? And I'm sure they're not the only ones out there. Any reaction to the way things are playing out on the state and local level?
So yeah, not specifically on South Carolina, but in general, we typically support gas tax increases. We look at it as a user fee, and certainly we're a big user. So the thing for us is, where is that money going? What's the revenue going to go towards? And when a state comes to us and we work with the legislature and they say, hey, we're looking at the gas tax increase, our first question is, okay, what are you going to use the revenue for? And we'll typically work with them and provide our input, but we support it as long as it's going again into those roads, bridges, rail crossings, things like that, because it's a user fee, and all of us who are using it are going to pay for that infrastructure and benefit from it. I can tell you that it's an interesting juxtaposition, because while we typically support motor fuel taxes, on the jet fuel tax side, and I do aviation work as well, a lot of times we oppose those, and people say, well, how can you be for one and not the other? Well, a lot of times what happens with aviation fuel taxes when those are raised is that money goes to the other sources. States try to take that and put it into a general fund, or maybe fund general aviation airports where those taxes aren't collected. So the issue that we have there when we oppose those increases is we want to make sure that it's the same as the motor fuel tax increase. If you're going to charge higher taxes on jet fuel, make sure that revenue is used at the airports where it's generated, so that the ones paying the taxes can benefit from it. Hope that makes sense.
I get it anyway. I see the point. Very good. Good. Highway safety, those of us, several of us on this call today work in that area, and it's certainly been a bad couple of years in safety in the U.S. Fatalities way up in 20, and it looks like again in 21. So are you seeing the same at UPS? Are your crashes involving your drivers up as well?
Well, I can't talk specifically about our numbers, but yeah, in general, I mean, it's certainly an issue that we've had to look at even more. And I think while technology has helped us in a lot of ways, it's hurt us in others. And the distracted driving just continues to be a huge issue for us, not our drivers, but the ones that we're sharing the road with. And so, I don't know how we get beyond that. I'm glad that the industry and the government hopefully will work together, and you guys and us and others like us can all continue to have these conversations when it comes to planning and what we can do to help, because those aren't numbers we want to see continue to trend up. And we've tried to internally take a second look with our training and make sure our drivers know how to react with distracted drivers. Take an extra second and be a little more cautious for what's going on around you, and just constantly remind them that while we have certain rules and methods in place to ensure that they're not distracted, there are not others out there like that. So we have to slow down and take a more particular focus on it. And again, we've even over the past 2 years, that's even something that's become more critical for us, because they understand how important their role is. They understand now that the cargo they're carrying is more precious than ever. And we've got to make sure that we reiterate that most important stop is the one at home when we're all done. So it's always been, safety's always been our top priority. But over the past few years, it's even been elevated, the focus that we put on it.
I think I could speak for a lot of people that on our side to say that if anybody's got any good ideas out there about what to do about this really depressing trend, to let us know, and that certainly would go to UPS and all other shippers and companies that use the highways there too, because it's just trending in the wrong direction.
And I'll add to that. I'll be interested to see how as the technology improves on vehicles, whether we're talking, a lot of talk about autonomous driving. Okay, we'll mention that since that's kind of one of the elements out there, and that's something UPS is looking at, and we're testing, autonomous vehicles throughout the Southwest, and it's kind of gotten into Texas now, and we still have the drivers in the cabs. I'm talking about tractor trailers that we're testing. We still have the drivers in the cabs, but they're completely hands off. And one of the things that we've seen is as scary as it may sound to a lot of us, that the technology, has a faster reaction time than humans. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't get distracted. And so do we need to build on it and improve it? Absolutely. And we have to be able to test it in real world scenarios. And we've done that. But I'll be interested to see if that doesn't improve safety when that starts to come, because again, that technology, the braking time, when you compare a human seeing action taking place in front of them and having to see it, process it, step on the brake, compared to technology not having to process it, just does it, it's pretty incredible.
It is. Those couple of seconds make all the difference in an incident. That's right. Are you all developing your own automated driving technologies, or are you partners with others?
We do a little bit on our own, but we do work with others. There's a company called our biggest that we've been working with is a company called Too Simple. They're probably the best example. We've done the tests I was talking about a minute or so ago. Those are taking place in the Southwest and kind of in the Arizona, New Mexico, Texas corridor there. And they've accumulated now, they've done 160,000 miles of autonomous freight haulage for us. And we expect to see that increase. We're looking at what we'd like to see is the ability to basically take that volume from California all the way across the southern U.S. up into the Carolinas, and see an established kind of an automated, autonomous freight network that could go there. And people say, well, why the South? And there's some different reasons, but it's technology. So the warm weather works a little bit better with that, and then a little friendlier legislative regulatory across the South than trying to do it in the North. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I have been of the opinion that sort of long distance, large trucks over the freeway would be the really first segment to automate in larger numbers. Sounds like you guys see it the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And they're Two Simple's been a great partner for us, and I think we can certainly make a difference there.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you foresee truck that segment of large trucks on freeways shifting to night travel more so than to avoid congestion?
Well, we do a lot of our driving at night anyway, flying and driving, just the nature of our business. We take orders late into the evening, get them to our package centers, and then have to go overnight for delivery. So there's been a shift to that, but it's really not really automation or safety. It's been just because it's the nature of the business for us. From the air side of it, yeah, there's less traffic at night, so it's easier for us to get into those airports. But I think there will always be a segment of it during the day, because there's going to be that need to stock warehouses and get that volume moving during the day.
Right. Yep. Good. Andy, I'm seeing that a little after 12:45 here. Looks like we might have a couple of questions in the queue here. Do you want to take time to field those?
Yeah, sure. So we got a couple of really good questions from Cameron Black, who wrote in. So first, how will the sheer volume of delivery vehicles congesting roadways be offset in the future? And then kind of a second and related question of how can the industry fill the void of truck driver shortages? I know y'all were talking a bit about that earlier.
Yeah, Cameron, great questions, both of them. So volume of delivery vehicles, I think, so a couple of things on that. One is you're seeing more and more of these large shippers take their warehousing and distribution centers and move them closer to shipping facilities. We see it a lot. We've seen it in Greensboro. If you look at the park there around our facility, that's not too far from there. We've seen it certainly in Columbia and South Carolina near our air hub. We see it a lot in Louisville, so that does decrease the distance that those trucks have to drive. You still have to get it from the DC to the hub, but it does decrease the distance that those trucks have to be on the roads. The other part of that is there's some exciting technology that I think long term, when everybody asks, we talk about drones, and I mentioned before about the last mile delivery, and everybody's looking forward to getting that burrito delivered via drone. But I think when you really look at the impact that it could have on the industry, you look at the heavier cargo drones, and UPS has announced earlier this year that they're going to purchase, vertical takeoff and landing drones that are larger, beta drones that can hold 1,500 to 2,000 pounds of cargo. And I think long term, that's an area that you could really benefit by taking some of those trucks off the roads, because what that does is a larger drone aircraft like that could take a ground vehicle off the roadways, could take a smaller prop plane off the road, and make it possible to get those packages into some rural areas that we just have to drive to now. The other question is truck driver shortages. Certainly as an industry, that's something that we all face. So autonomous vehicles could be an answer for that down the road. I think another part of it is making trucking exciting for our youth and making it an acceptable career. We judge our youth a lot of times on going to school and getting a degree, but I think we can do a lot better job of making the industry more exciting when it comes to being a mechanic or being a driver, and show them the technology. They're some of the work that our trucking associations have done both in North Carolina and South Carolina with the Be Proud campaign that they do, where they take the tractor trailer around to schools and show them all of the different jobs associated with the industry. Hopefully we can engage some of those young folks and make it more exciting for them, to let them know that it's not just turning a wheel. They're not getting in an old worn out truck, that there is actually some pretty cool technology involved in that cab.
Excellent, Jeff. Thank you. Another good question rolled in from Paul Benton. I was just about to ask this. I'm glad that Paul did. Love it when somebody jumps one of my questions. That means it's working. Are there specific policies UPS advocates for related to curbside management in urban areas? And yeah, my take on that is the competition for space at the curb is just getting more and more. So yes, what would you guys like to see?
That's another good question. So, we've seen various things out there tried, like, curfews on when we can deliver and things, and access where we have to park in certain areas and then make those deliveries throughout urban areas. And the difficult part of that, again, goes back to the customer expectation. So if we're gonna not allow deliveries, certain hours of the day, our customers have to not expect that package at 9 a.m. To be on their doorstep when their business opens and things like that. So that's kind of a challenging question that we could consistently have to have. We're doing a lot of things to try and I guess explore how we could help. For example, we're testing e-bikes, electronic bicycles in certain areas where maybe instead of driving the package car all the way into a city center, we take it and put it, take those packages and put them in a pod somewhere or in a centrally located warehouse, and then we use e-bikes to deliver from there. Now, there's a lot of things that go into that, package density and weather and things, but it does seem to help with some of the congestion. We've done things like golf cart delivery in certain areas. More neighborhood based now, but it keeps the big package cars out of those big busy neighborhoods, and instead we can deliver via golf cart. So we're trying a lot of different methods to see what we can do to help.
Yeah, and that's an aspect that automated vehicles might actually make more difficult, that competition for the curb space when everybody's picking up and dropping off. Could get really heated.
Yeah, access points are another one, right? Where you've probably seen UPS access points. It's like the delivery lockers. Other companies have those also. Yeah.
Do you all route your trucks and package cars around congestion?
Absolutely. So for UPS, if all of our vehicles are delayed 5 minutes a day, just a 5-minute delay, that would cost us about $114 million a year. So we look at congestion constantly. We use it's called Orion. It's onboard routing optimization and navigation, and every single day it tracks the way that our drivers deliver and the turns that they make and how long they're to stop, how many times they back up. I see a question of how many times they turn left versus how many times they turn right. And then it reports all of that back, and we change our routes consistently. And at Gavin's question there, is it true that delivery routes are planned to avoid left turns? Absolutely. Our goal is to turn right as much as possible as opposed to left. It's safer from a visibility standpoint, saves time, less idling, and over thousands and millions of miles, it saves on fuel and makes us more efficient and cuts down on injuries. So yeah, all of those go into avoiding congestion where we can.
And then that ties into the idea of environmental issues and global warming is on a lot of minds, should be on a lot of minds. Your company is probably one of the larger emitters of CO2 in the US, doing what you do. So are you facing pressure on that, and what are you doing to respond?
Well, in terms of pressure, we put the pressure on ourselves, right? I mean, we have a sustainability team that looks at it, and certainly we have experts that are watching it and looking at how we can be proactive. And we want to be. We've been working for years on decarbonizing our portion of the transportation sector. We want to be a good player there. So I got to make sure I hit the numbers right. So I'll look down at my notes here, but I mean, 40% alternative fuel and ground operations and 25% renewable electricity in facilities by 2025. Those are a couple of our, goals within the next 4 years or so. We're looking at sustainable aviation fuel, and the goal is by 2035, we can use 30% sustainable aviation fuel in our aircraft. Of course, a lot of that goes into the amount of production and how, what kind of scale that our producers can get to. But we have constant conversations with them about that. And the goal is 100% renewable electricity in facilities by 2035. And then, of course, we call our package cars a rolling laboratory. So we have a variety of natural gas vehicles, compressed natural gas, liquid natural gas, electric vehicles out there consistently, looking at how we can reduce that carbon footprint where possible.
Yeah. The electric package car going to be in my neighborhood soon?
I hope so. I've talked to a lot of people, certainly in the South about that, and some of your energy partners down there have been great in the early conversations that we've had. We have to look at, one of the things we always look at is the cost of the electric vehicle versus the cost of the typical gas vehicle. And we're starting to see that parity, that price parity even out somewhat. So we work with the states on incentives and grants, work with our utility providers to make sure that the grid can handle it. And then I think we'll see it. We're still a few years down the road from full scale deployment, but you're seeing it. You're seeing that deployment of those electric cars pop up certainly in areas all across the U.S.
Excellent. Couple other questions came in, and we got just a couple minutes left. So maybe Jeff, I can press you for some quick answers here. But Justin Carroll, one of our officers, commenting on, in his opinion, how bad the Postal Service is. If and when they go out of business, UPS pick up the slack. That's you'll probably want to soften the answer there a little bit, but that was on my mind too. Of your competitor is in a weird situation.
Yeah, we're competitors somewhat, but we're also customers of each other. We use the Postal Service to do some last mile work for us, and then we also carry a lot of that Postal Service volume on our aircraft and our over the road fleet.
Yeah. And Adam Fisher, one of our hosts, you have a line item in your budget for parking tickets in major.
We do, Adam, and I can't tell you the number, but in certain major cities it is high, and it is a part of our budget and something that we plan for. It's also a part of that the government affairs guy gets to go in and try and negotiate with cities to lower that when possible, but it certainly is a part of what we do. We try not to jam up the traffic and when we can, but it is part of the business.
Yeah, in downtown areas, that competition is very fierce. A lot of people want to be on the curb there. That's buses and bikes and parked cars and all kinds of things. So, a couple minutes left. Jeff, what have I missed? What else did you sort of want to make a point here before we go?
Well, I mean, I just I love talking about our industry to everyone. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but just thank you. I see a lot of the different towns and cities represented on here, and I know you're all a part of what we do on a daily basis, and to our Department of Transportation folks and all the people representing the different areas here. Just thank you for what you do. And yes, I'm patting our own industry on the back a little bit, but you all have played an incredible role in literally saving lives over the past 2 years. And I think, and I hope that the conversations that we've had between the shareholders in our community continue to have the same momentum that they've had over the 2 years. Because while we've all been separated somewhat and on this virtual world, it's been interesting to see that the collaboration has gotten better, I think, and the conversations have increased amongst our own partners within. So I hope that continues. And I thank you all for it. And I'm sure there are people on this call that have helped me and helped UPS over the past couple of years. So I appreciate that. And again, 16 days, get those orders in.
Very good. And if anybody needs that part-time job, we know who to go to.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. I found this fascinating. It's not my main line of business, but we, you know, it's there. It's a big part of what we do, and we should all, those of us at the state and local agencies, pay closer attention and do what we can to keep the freight moving well. It helps everybody. So appreciate it, Jeff. Andy, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you for any closing words there.
All right, Joe. Thanks so much. We go ahead and there we go. Cool. Well, again, thanks for everybody for attending. Really appreciate you taking some time out to bring us some good questions and listen in on a great session that we had. Again, just as a reminder, I'll be emailing out to everybody if you registered the PDH form and evaluation form. Again, the easiest way to fill out the evaluation is just to take a look at the link that's on the bottom of that first page, just that tiny URL link. That's the easiest way for us to kind of aggregate everybody's evaluations. If you don't receive a PDH form by the end of the day today, please get up with me and I can get that sent along to you. I didn't have anything else.
Just
Joe, any last words?
I think Nick's side is
reflections.
A couple more events, and then we're winding down for the year. So happy holidays to everybody, and we will see you back in January and January and February with the next conversation. Start out year 2. So very good. Happy holidays. Thanks again, Jeff, and thanks to everybody for looking in.